Well, let's get some more analysis on what's been happening in Spain. We can cross to Brussels and speak to political analyst Carlos Mascarell Vilar. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. First of all, let's talk about those protests in Madrid today outside the parliament. There were also some other protests earlier in the week. What's got people so angry?
Well, as you know, the territorial question in Spain has been running for some time. And there is a bunch of the Spanish society which thinks that we need to be equal in front of law. And as you know, there was an illegal referendum, and there were lots of things that, according to certain part of the Spanish society, were not accomplishing with the law. So, of course, people or a certain part of the Spanish society is pretty angry with the amnesty deal. So basically, they think that Spain or the state or the new government should have never accepted an amnesty deal in order to remain in power. That's basically the main reason.
And what sort of a price does that deal with the separatists from Catalonia actually come at? What's Pedro Sanchez going to have to do to return the favour?
Yeah, that's a pretty complex question. I mean, the next 4 years are going to be pretty tough, pretty polarized. We would have the conservative and the extreme right trying to be extremely tough with the new government, and the new prime minister, Pedro Sanchez, will have to negotiate every law with the pro-separatist Catalan parties mainly, and also the Basque country. So, of course, this would mean that it will be hard for them politically, and it will have a cost in the long term, probably for them as well. So it's going to be a very tough battle for them during the next four years. The other element, which is pretty important as well, is that now we have the amnesty, but at some point, the Catalan pro-separatist parties will ask for something else, because the final end of all this process is to come up with a sort of political solution to the conflict, which might result in a referendum or a new regional constitutional law for the Catalans and for the Basque country. So it's going to be extremely tough for Mr. Sanchez.
I mean, did he have any choice? I mean, were there all alternatives to this scheme of reaching out to the regional parties and building a coalition with them? Because, I mean, the numbers didn't stack up for anybody else either, did they?
Yeah, that's correct. So it was pretty tough. The numbers, the arithmetics were how they were. And if you look at the current parliament, you have the conservative with the extreme right and the socialist with all the regionalist and pro-separatist parties from different regions in Spain. So the only solution was new elections, but nobody could tell if the result would have been the same. We had in the past already the same situation, and the result was relatively similar to the previous ones. Another solution would have been that the socialists would have abstained to have a minority government of the conservatives without the far right. But of course, that would have meant that they won't be in power right now.
And just looking back at these years of Pedro Sanchez rule, I believe he came to power in 2018. Obviously, he's had lots to deal with, notably a pandemic. But what's the overall feeling about how his premiership has delivered for Spain?
I think that's a very good question. And actually, in general, if you look at the macroeconomic results of the last years of Mr. Sanchez in office, the results are pretty good. If you see how the economy is working currently, Spain is at the top in Europe in terms of economic growth. Also, it has been dealing pretty well with the pandemic as well, also with the energy crisis as a result of the war in Ukraine, because we are sort of isolated from the rest of Europe. So generally speaking, I think people is happy about the management of Mr. Sanchez in office. So I think that part of the Spanish society has accepted the amnesty as well as a result of his good job in other areas and his promises for the future.
Okay, well, to see how he gets on through to the year 2027. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Carlos Mascarell Vilar, thank you very much indeed.